Here's what's cooking on an all-new edition of the Sports Stove podcast. We're talking NFL as the week approaches, all kinds of news to discuss. College football games this week, and we're going to preview the Major League Baseball World Series. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up to me?
Welcome into an all-new edition of the Sports Stove podcast. I'm your host, Vince Stover, joined by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing good.
Well, I figured you were, even though it hasn't gone the way you wanted it to. Hockey season has started. We won't talk too much about it to bore our listeners. So we don't really have a big hockey base listening to us. And that one guy we did have didn't appreciate us talking about hockey. So, but everything else is rolling along too. We heard about a passing of a Nashville legend in the sports world, Joe Biddle. Used to have a thing in the newspaper, Beat Biddle, every week, and you could pick games and things like that many moons ago. Passed away today, so I hate to hear that. But there's been a lot more, I was going to say positive news in sports, but honestly, there's been a lot of negative news in sports this week, hasn't there?
Yes, yeah. It's like I said, there's a lot going on. All the different sports are going on, and a lot happening.
Everything is happening. You're right now. So we've got NBA is started, NHL, MLB still going, NFL, college football, college basketball tips off, I think, tomorrow for some teams, next week for every team. So there's a lot of stuff happening. We're going to focus mainly football and baseball here today. And let's start with our NFL coverage, Dad, because there's plenty of things happening in the NFL and plenty of things happening with quarterbacks in the NFL. Let's start with the Indianapolis Colts. They made the announcement this week. At first, it came across as, well, Matt Ryan's injured, so they're going to move on to the next guy. But then they came out and said, no, this move is for the rest of the season. Matt Ryan is not going to start at quarterback anymore. And I heard today on Dan Patrick that there's a lot of financial implications to that for the Colts as well. By not playing Matt Ryan anymore, they're going to save like $17 million. This Colts quarterback move, are you surprised by it, and how'd you take it?
Well, yes, I'm surprised. I mean, we had talked about it. I thought Matt Ryan would have a good year. This would be a great place for him, but it's not working, and it's not, the Colts are not doing well on the heels of last year. So I guess it makes sense to make a change. I mean, they definitely don't have the situation worked out there, and I think they're past being able to have a successful season. So yeah, I'm a little bit surprised because I don't know, but they have an answer there right now. More than likely, they would acquire a quarterback, through the draft or somewhere else. But yeah, I was surprised a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you got a guy in Sam Ehlinger who was drafted by the Colts. Is it 2 years ago now? I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago. I think it was last year. The year before was the Washington State quarterback. But he's been around. He's been there. They've seen him in practice. He actually had a decent preseason, if I remember correctly. So Matt Ryan's arm seems shot. It looks like his career's done. I'm not sure that we'll see Matt Ryan throw another pass in the NFL. And now Sam Ehlinger gets his chance, and he's going up against Taylor Heineke in Washington this week. So game one, that Washington defense is pretty decent. What's the expectation for Indianapolis for the rest of the season? Are they still competing for the division, do you think? Or do you think now it's just the Titans to lose?
Yeah, I think it's the Titans to lose. I don't think they're competing for the division. Jacksonville's there doing well. And, the Texans, while they haven't won a lot of games, are competitive too. And it just doesn't seem like Indianapolis is going to be able to make a move unless they really have a turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Tennessee leads the division 4-2. Indianapolis is 3-1. Jacksonville is 2-5, and Houston 4-1 at the end of the pack there. I think Indy still has a chance because I don't think Tennessee's that good. Yes, they're 4-2, but I don't think they're that good. So I think there's still a chance. I think there's a chance Jacksonville actually makes a run at the division. They're going to have to start that run right now, but we'll talk about them when we get to our pick sixes here in a little bit. It's an interesting move. It's sad to see Matt Ryan's career kind of go this direction. I thought he would be a good addition, but let's face it, Indianapolis, Phillip Rivers didn't work. Carson Wentz didn't work. Now Matt Ryan didn't work. The best thing for you to do is to go young and take a shot at the young level, whether that's Sam Ehlinger or whether that's drafting somebody this year. I think that's the way you have to go if you're Indianapolis now. Another interesting quarterback battles in New England. Mac Jones gets pulled. Supposedly that was the plan. Zappe comes in. He gets 2 touchdowns. They still get blown out, still get beat. And, of course, Bill Belichick's not telling us anything. So how do you feel about that quarterback situation in New England? Should it be Mac Jones, or has Bailey Zappe earned his right to have his opportunity?
I mean, I would think it would be Mac Jones. That's what it would look like it is. I think he's going to be the starter this week. So we will see. Again, I don't know a lot about the inner workings there from what like you said, Belichick doesn't give us much information, but from what it sounds like, it's just, Jones is frustrated with some things. There's been a lot said about the situation in New England, not naming an offensive coordinator. Supposedly that may be a problem. A quarterback needs to have some coach that he has a relationship with there. And, of course, it's not going to be Belichick. So, maybe there's been some problems there. And again, if he is really questioning the situation, that doesn't always go well in New England either. But, I think he has the talent and ability, so we'll see how it goes the next couple of weeks.
If there's any place where a high draft pick at quarterback could get benched for a late round quarterback, it's New England. And just for the sake of Bill Belichick's trying to show everybody how smart he is and saying, hey, man, I'm so smart. I drafted this kid middle of the draft. And I saw that potential from the get-go. I knew he was better than Mac Jones. So, will that be the case? I don't know. But I would assume if Mac Jones loses his job to Bailey Zappe, there are teams that will be interested in acquiring Mac Jones in the offseason, trying to bring him over to their team as well. Let's talk about Green Bay for a minute. Rough go of things here as of late, losing to teams they should not lose to, both New York teams and Washington. And, there's a lot of turmoil right now. It's a lot of fodder talking about what's going on in Green Bay. Had a conversation on social media today. Somebody thought that LaFleur should be on the hot seat. I said, that's crazy. And they said, well, why shouldn't he be on the hot seat? I was like, he's won a minimum of 13 games every year as a head coach. Starting off 3-4 is not reason to put a guy on a hot seat. I think we have time to give him at the very least. But, Dad, the Packers, I mean, what's going on? It's not working what they're doing.
No, and you kind of scratch your head and look because they do have talent. They have had some injuries, and they are relying on some young guys, and they have not come through yet. I don't think, like you said, I don't think LaFleur needs to be on the hot seat. I try to keep up with the situation a lot and listen to a lot of the interviews and stuff that comes out of there. And, he's proved he's a good coach, and I think he's handling the situation the right way. It is early in the year. Now, again, a couple more games. And the tough thing is this week, they're going to Buffalo, and that's not probably the best thing in the situation they're at. But if they were to happen to win this game, that would change a lot. And I think confidence, I think a lot of the young guys are playing with a lot of pressure. And I think if things, could get flowing, that would help. They do have veterans. They do have veteran leadership. The veterans have not seemed to, be dissenting at this point. Rogers, some people were critical of how he's trying to motivate people, but I think he has not given up on people and has tried to help there. They just need a game and where things go right. They have had ill-timed penalties that should not have been committed. They've had a lot of dropped passes. I don't know all the technical part. There's been some, I guess, routes run and things that weren't there. But again, they catch the passes. And to me, even on the defense has potential, but it's always bad when you drop an interception. And they've had several balls that could have been intercepted that they dropped, and that changes the flow of the game. So I don't know. They need to get things back on track. To me, it's not like they don't have talent, or it's not where they don't have it in the right positions. It's just a matter of of it coming together the right way. And I'm sure there's a lot of tenseness, both with the coaches, the assistant coaches, and to some extent the players. So it'll be real interesting to see this game. It's a national game against a very good team on the road. So I think it'll be interesting to see how if they can rebound on this week.
Well, the defense has been a problem. It was supposed to be really good, and it's not. You say they dropped interception. I mean, that's why they play defense, right? Because they can't catch. No, it hurts when you drop interceptions, but the defense has not lived up to what they were supposed to be. There have been highlights. The rookie that they drafted first, the linebacker out of Georgia, he's played really good. But there have also been low points in this season. Offensively, you're right. The drops happen. But if you go back in the Packers' history, young receivers have always dropped passes in Green Bay. Almost every single one of them. Not all of them, but most of them. And so I think that's an issue that you're going to have to you have to give time to come through those things. They have gotten open. That's a big thing. That's in the past when Devontae Adams was injured, we didn't have guys that would get open. And they are getting open. They're just not catching the passes. That's a problem. They have very little time to fix it, though, Dad. Minnesota's 5-1 in the division. You don't want to get too much separation there. And we look at the wild card race. You got the Giants are 6-1. The Cowboys are 5-2. They just got their quarterback back last week. So that wild card race is going to be a hard one, too. So they're going to have to get things rolling quickly, or it's going to be too late for them. Any at all thought of it's time to move to Jordan Love?
No, I don't see where that would help, and I don't think there's time to do that. I think if they get to a point where they're going to give up on the year, which I don't think they're going to do at any point because of the leadership and everything, then maybe you would play Jordan Love. But I don't think he gives I don't think Rodgers has been the problem. Now, again, he does have an injured thumb. He could have some injury issues where Jordan Love would have to play, but I don't see where that would help at all with the problems that they're having.
I think Aaron Rodgers is part of the problem. And by that, I mean, it's not his ability. It's just that all the mental stuff, it's just weird. He just did so many odd things over the last 2 years. I think it's played a toll. And I think that he's having issues with these young guys. I'm not sure that he knows how to motivate them. I think he's trying to. I'm not sure if these guys are going to be motivated the same way that guys in the past had been. That being said, I don't think it's time to move on from Rodgers either. I also don't think they need to trade Love. I think they need to hold on to him because I do think he is the future in Green Bay at quarterback, just from what we've seen this year, especially in preseason from him this year. Just looked a lot better. It looked like he's finally clicking with things. But trade deadline's next week, Dad. What kind of offer would you take to get Jordan Love out? Maybe it's a place like Indianapolis, a place like Washington, maybe, or a place like maybe even Seattle, even though they're rolling right now.
Well, I don't think they would want, to get rid of him. So I think if they were going to, they would really have to get something substantial, either, a high draft pick or multiple, good draft picks. I don't know if they could get a first round pick, but, could they get a couple seconds? Is there another player on that team that they could use? I think Green Bay would have to come out of this looking very good.
You're not going to trade.
You couldn't break even.
You're not going to trade Jordan Love for picks because that doesn't help now. If they trade Jordan Love or anybody, it's going to be to help now. So that means you're trading Jordan Love for a wide receiver like, I don't know, DK Metcalf. That'd be pretty sweet. Or Michael Pittman. I saw that name pop up today. That's kind of what you'd be looking at. You would not be looking at picks because Rodgers would go through the roof if they traded. You're not going to trade the future for the future, right? You're not going to trade Jordan Love for the future because he's supposed to be the future. So you're trading Jordan Love if you do it for the present. I don't think he gets moved. I don't think the Packers do anything substantial at the trade deadline. They're typically going to bring in these receivers that don't. It's probably going to be a waste, whatever they do. If they make a trade, I'd be shocked if they made a good trade and something that's actually going to help this team this year. But I've been shocked before. Speaking of trades, the Jets lose running back Breece Hall, and my fantasy team loses Breece Hall as well, to a season-ending injury. They go out and get James Robinson from Jacksonville. Michael Carter, of course, is still there also, so they kind of go with a 1-2 punch there and add to their depth at running back. The Eagles go out and get Robert Quinn from Chicago for a fourth-round draft pick. The Eagles trying to bolster their run, the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles trying to bolster their run as well. Either of those trades pique your interest, and anything that you're expecting with the trade deadline next week?
Well, I think the Jets trade was very good. I think Robinson really fits in that spot. And again, the Jets are really doing well. They're on a move. So I think they needed to get someone. And I think that could be a real good move for them. Obviously, the Eagles, bolstering their defense is a good thing. Chicago, are they going to have a little bit of a fire sale here or whatever at the trade deadline? I don't know.
They've only got one other guy to trade, and that's Roquan Smith. I mean, fire sale in Chicago. Nobody wants what Chicago has to offer other than Roquan Smith. So if Roquan Smith gets moved, I love Roquan Smith. So I'd love for him to get moved because I hate Chicago. So no, I don't think you're going to see a fire sale from Chicago. But Robert Quinn, Roquan Smith are the two names we've heard coming out of Chicago that could be moved. And, so maybe Roquan Smith's next.
Yeah, it could be. Otherwise, it'd be interesting to see at the trade deadline. I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of conversations going on at this stage behind the scenes. Usually there's not a lot of big trades. This would be interesting. Seattle's interesting because, like you said, they've got a couple receivers that could be valuable to people, but Seattle's all of a sudden not doing that bad this season. So, I don't know, where that goes, and the teams that aren't doing well are going to have good draft picks. It's a good draft for quarterbacks. So I don't know if there may be any big blockbusters or not. There could be. I mean, if you got the Eagles making a big move or the Rams going to make a big move, they have history sometime of doing something like that. Denver's really struggling. Are they going to trade anybody? I don't know. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'd love to see Tyler Lockett in Green Bay, and maybe more than DK Metcalf. I like DK Metcalf, but Lockett would be a fun one to have. Veteran guy. I think Rodgers would get along with really well as well. Let's get to our picks for this week. We did not do a show last week due to time constraints, and so we did not submit our picks last week for the pick six. But let's get straight into this week's pick. Again, we pick 6 games. We pick all the primetime games, so Thursday, Sunday, and Monday night games. And then we pick 3, just any games of our choosing. We're using we picked the spread. We're using the point spreads from runyourpool.com. And so, Dad, let's get started with Thursday night's game. It is Baltimore, 1.5-point favorite on the road at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, my goodness, what an odd year they're having. Nothing working right, it seems like, for Tampa at this point. But they're still in it, 3-4. Baltimore 4-3. They haven't been what we thought they'd be either. So, what was your pick on Baltimore at Tampa?
I take Baltimore to cover for 1.5. I think Baltimore is going to make a turnaround and do better. I don't know that Tampa is headed in the right direction. And I think Baltimore ought to win that game. So even though it's in Tampa, so I'll go with Baltimore.
I picked Baltimore too. I'm not happy. I wouldn't have picked this game if it wasn't one we had to pick. Because at any moment, things can click for Tom Brady. Until he fails for a whole season, I'm not, it's hard to go against him. But I went against them as well. Baltimore -1.5 on the road there on Thursday night. Let's see here. Sunday night, Green Bay Packers are on the road at Buffalo. For the first time in Aaron Rodgers' career, he's a double-digit dog, 10.5 points. Green Bay on the road. Buffalo is a really good team. At Buffalo is a really hard place to play. Which way did you go with this one?
Because it's 10.5, I went with Green Bay. I would like to hope we can win this one, but definitely be closer than 10.5. Now, it could get away from us and it could get ugly, but Buffalo's been a little bit up and down. But boy, when they're on, they are really, really good. You were talking about Green Bay's defense, and I think the potential is there. And I think either they're going to have a great game, or it's really going to get away from them quick with Allen there. So we will see. But I'll go with Green Bay with the 10.5.
Historically, the Packers struggle with guys like Josh Allen. Again, they look like they might be headed to a free fall, but are they? That's the question. Because my name is Vince and I have a son named Brett, I could not pick against Green Bay at 10.5. So I went Green Bay as well. 10.5-point underdogs in this game. But again, I wouldn't have picked this game if we didn't have to either. That brings us to Monday night, the Battle of Ohio. Cincinnati on the road to Cleveland. Cincinnati is the favorite on the road, 3.5-point favorite here. Cleveland's been relatively impressive with Jacoby Brissett and working their way towards Deshaun Watson being their quarterback. Where did you go with this one on Monday night?
This was a little bit hard to pick, but I think Cincinnati is really turning it around, so I'm going to go with Cincinnati. Of course, this is quite the rivalry. It's at Cleveland. I think Cleveland's in real trouble. They're just not winning games, and this could be a game when, the kind of game they could really, come up and play good at. But I'm going to go with Cincinnati because, boy, I think they're headed in the right direction. And I think they can cover that.
Yeah, the Bengals are the real deal. I think they're the third best team in the AFC behind Buffalo and Kansas City right now. I think they could argue for the second best team in the AFC and wouldn't be shocking to see them back in the Super Bowl with the amount of talent they have on that team. I, too, am picking Cincinnati -3.5 at Cleveland. So we've both picked Baltimore, Green Bay, and Cincinnati for our first three. Let's see where we go with the next three. Who's your fourth game this week?
I'm going to take Miami over Detroit by 3.5. It's in Detroit, but I think Miami is going to bounce back and do a lot better. And Detroit is not doing well. And Miami needs to win this game. And 3.5, I'll go with Miami over Detroit.
I'm with you. Same thing. I got Miami as well over Detroit. Detroit, they play hard, but Miami's a really good team. I think Miami wins this one convincingly. So I, too, picked Miami -3.5. All right. So far, we picked four of the same stuff. Who's your fifth game?
The New England Jets game, and I'll take the Jets. They're down. They're given 1.5, but I think the Jets are really making a move coming on. New England, you just never know for the most part. Last week I just didn't see that coming at all. And I think with the Jets being at home and this being a rivalry, I'm surprised they're not favored. So I'll go with the Jets.
I didn't pick this game. But for me, both of these teams, you don't know what you're going to get. so that's why I stayed away from it completely. But I went the other team in New York, the New York Giants, plus 2.5 at Seattle. On the road will be tough, but I'll tell you what, I'm just impressed with what the Giants are doing this year. And I think that the Seattle front office doesn't want success. So at some point, that's going to crumble as well. I'll go with the Giants plus 2.5 at Seattle for my 5th game this week. And then, Dad, your last game, 6th game this week.
I will take the Las Vegas Raiders over the Saints by 1.5. I know it's at New Orleans, and that's kind of a tough place to play. But again, I think the Raiders are rebounding a little bit. They have to. New Orleans, I really don't know where they're at. I guess Winston is not starting a quarterback this week. So as I looked at games, I think Las Vegas should beat New Orleans.
All right. I stayed away from this game also for the same reason as I stayed away from New England and New York. I just don't know what you're going to get from either of these teams, really. So my last game is Jacksonville Jaguars. They're a favorite this week by 3.5 points over Denver. Denver has been absolutely horrible. Jacksonville has been improved. Only 2 wins so far, but improved. So I'm going to hitch my wagon to the Jags and go Jaguars minus 3.5. I'd liked it better if it was 2.5, but I'm going to go ahead and take it at 3.5 there as well. Let's look at the other games going on in the NFL this week. Minnesota at home. I don't know why I didn't pick this game. They're minus 3.5 over Arizona. I think Minnesota covers that easily. Maybe I should have picked them over instead of somebody else. But nonetheless, you're a Minnesota hater. I don't like Minnesota, but I think they're a good team. How do you feel about Minnesota, Arizona?
Well, Arizona's a hard one to figure. You see them one week, and they've fallen apart. And all of a sudden the next week, hey, maybe they'll win their division. You don't know, and so I just don't know. I stayed away from that one. Again, Minnesota has a good record. I'm not convinced they're a great team, but we will see. They do have some great talent, no doubt about that. But I just don't see them dominating as the year goes on, and this would be the kind of game they could lose, but we'll see.
Is there a better receiver in the NFL than Justin Jefferson?
I don't think so. I mean, if I could choose anybody in fantasy, you would definitely want to take him. There are a couple other ones that are real good that would be close, but I don't know if there's anybody better than he is, from there. So we will see. If it is, it'd be the guy from the same school.
Yeah, Jamar Chase.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, they're right there. They're at the top of the class. And Kirk Cousins is good enough to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. He's good enough to throw the ball to Adam Thielen. And if Dalvin Cook stays healthy, that offense is good. The defense, I'm not sold on. The offense, I am. And I'm counting on Kirk Cousins in fantasy now because Russell Wilson let me down. So anyways, I need them to be good. Anyways, all right. Dallas and Chicago. It's at Dallas. Dallas 9.5-point favorites. The Bears won this past weekend convincingly. They're not in my pick 6. I did pick them to win this, or not win, to cover this week. But Dallas has Dak Allen back, and I know you've not said one nice thing about Dallas yet this year. I'm reminded of that by one of our listeners. So how does this one go, Dallas and Chicago?
Dallas should win this one. There's no doubt about it with Chicago. So I didn't pick it because I'm not sure about the line being that well. Be interesting, Prescott being back. And, Dallas has played well. And so they shouldn't have any trouble with Chicago. It's going to be interesting with a couple other teams in their division to see how it goes. But like I said, that division's gone from the worst to maybe the best. So we'll see how that goes.
At least the most entertaining, if not the best. Atlanta hosts Carolina. Carolina had a huge win with P.J. Walker at quarterback this last week. Atlanta hosting their 4.5-point favorites. This game will not be entertaining whatsoever, but it'll have some fantasy effect and things like that as well. Christian McCaffrey gone from Carolina now. I'm probably going against Carolina every single week the rest of the way out. How do you see Atlanta, Carolina?
Yeah, like you said, I don't know if it'll be a real interesting game there. We'll see. Again, I think Marcus Mariota is hanging on. I know you thought he might be gone soon, but we will see from there. This could be an interesting game in the division because Tampa really could be going in the wrong direction here. You're right. It's hard to pick against Tom Brady, but if things really fall apart in Tampa, somebody's got to win that division. And, this game here, Atlanta could stay in the hunt. So we will see. And Carolina really rebounded last week. Didn't see that coming. Apparently they're energized, and we'll see.
Yeah, I mean the NFC South could be won by an 8-9 team by the end of this season. Pennsylvania, they've got an in-state battle just like Ohio has going on Monday night. Philadelphia is hosting Pittsburgh. Philadelphia 10.5-point favorites. Again, not my pick 6, but I actually picked Pittsburgh to cover. I think it's the kind of game that it is. It could stay close, although I think Philadelphia still wins this game. It's hard for me to go pick Philadelphia to be 7-0, but they're a good team.
Yeah, they are. And like you said, it is an in-state rivalry game, so that makes it a little bit dangerous. But Pittsburgh they're not really that good. And I think Philadelphia really is good. Philadelphia should win this. But we'll see. I think everybody's waiting for Philadelphia to fold up for a game or two and see what happens. And this would be one that could be tough because it is, an in-state rivalry. But Philadelphia may kind of be the real thing here.
Maybe so. Tennessee came out with pictures of their supposedly new stadium coming relatively soon. They're going to be on the road in Houston, which is where the Titans originally started. Houston is 1-4-1. They're only 1.5-point dog in this game to Tennessee. Tells you something about how much people think about Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins this game. Houston, they try hard, but boy, I was surprised to see this one only 1.5, and probably should have picked this one too, like Minnesota as well. But how do you see Tennessee, Houston?
Well, like you said, it's interesting with the line because obviously the people that set the line, feel like they know something going on. So you kind of wonder about that. Being a division game like this, could give Tennessee trouble. Tennessee probably should win it without any problem. But I don't know. That was interesting about the line.
San Francisco now with Christian McCaffrey, 1.5-point favorites on the road against the Rams. I was surprised to see this one. I'm going with the Rams. Again, not in my pick 6, but still picking the Rams to win this game because it's got to click with LA at some point, right?
Yes, that's what I think. I think the Rams should win this one. Everybody kind of wondered about San Francisco, and boy, they got McCaffrey, and they really could help them a lot. And maybe Kansas City's just that good, but it didn't look that good the other night. So, and like I said, the Rams have got to rebound a little bit, you would think. So, but again, it's a division game, and a lot on the line there in California.
A lot on the line for two quarterbacks. We mentioned it earlier, Indianapolis and Washington. Indianapolis, the favorite, 2.5 points at home. I'm picking Washington in this game because I think Washington's defense is really good. Give Indianapolis a week or two, and I think they'll have things turned around. But, this game, what are we getting? I don't know. So, Washington, Indianapolis, where do you sit?
Yeah, I would pick Washington in this one too because Indianapolis just hasn't looked like they're going to do anything there. So we will see. Washington, like you said, has a good defense. They have some good offensive players also. So we'll see. But I'd go Washington.
All right. Any other NFL news topics you want to talk about?
No, I think. Like I said, be interesting to see. One thing I did think about today, and I don't know that I've heard anything on this with the Packers. would be, I wonder if how big a deal it may be with Nathaniel Hackett being gone. He did a lot of the play design and stuff like that, and I just wonder, how much, if any, effect that has internally. I haven't heard anybody say anything about that. I do know he was very involved, with Rodgers and everything on designing a lot of the game plan. And again, I think Stenavich does fine, but I just wonder if there's anything to that.
I don't think so. I think, when you listen to Rodgers talk, I think if there was, you would know about it. I think somewhere it would have came up, whether it was mentioning other people, other coaches, or things like that. It has always been about the young receivers and how they don't run the right route, or they're dropping passes, or those kinds of things. And I don't think it has anything to do with the coaching staff. They got to get a hold of it, no doubt about that. But I don't think Hackett is there's something that you lose when you lose an offensive coordinator, especially one that you had success under. But he wasn't the same kind of offensive coordinator, although he was involved. They all are. And obviously Hackett's not working out in Denver, which doesn't mean it wasn't helpful for Green Bay. But I don't think that has anything to do with it, or else I think you would have heard something in regards to the coaching staff from Aaron Rodgers. Let's move on to baseball. The World Series starts off on Friday. Phillies and the Astros, just like we predicted at the beginning of the season.
Yes.
I did predict the Astros. I did not predict the Phillies. Phillies 87 wins. Astros 106 wins. I picked Houston before the season starts to win the World Series. I'll stick with that, but Philadelphia's been hot. Here's my thing, Dad, is had they picked up a day or two after Philadelphia ended their series, I think Philadelphia had a better chance. But now they've both had time to sit, so that rhythm, that mojo isn't there anymore. I think Houston comes out and wins this series. I'll call it in 5 games. I think Houston's that good.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good World Series. I think Philadelphia will still be very competitive from there. And again, they've got a lot of hitters. And again, if they could get momentum, win one of the games. I assume it starts in Houston. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. If they could win one of the games there, then, they'd have some momentum going back. And I'm sure things are crazy in Philadelphia, just like they are in Houston. So it'd be very interesting to see. I talked to my Phillies insider today, and of course he's very happy, of course, excited that they're there. Like he said, just in baseball, the hot team, you get a team that's hot, and that's really what happened with Philadelphia. He feels like there's no pressure on them. They can play loose. They can come in ready to go. And he thinks that's an advantage. As a fan, he's told me a couple things interesting. He said he was expecting the Phillies to be contending for the World Series next year or the year after. I guess there's a minor league pitcher that he says will be a definite starter next year, and if Syndergaard comes back. So he said to him, this is just gravy that they're in the World Series this year. He's really excited about what's coming in the future. And if they play loose, but like you said, Houston's a very good team, so I don't think they'll get snuck up on there. And again, I'm for the Phillies because I got a friend that's a Phillies fan, so I'll say the Phillies in 7.
I got friends that are Philly fans. Doesn't make me cheer for Philly. That's funny. It's all just gravy because next year they're going to be better. That's just coping ahead of time, so that if they do lose, he's already got the narrative set up for them. Appreciate you, Patrick. But Sunday was the last time these teams played. They'll meet on Friday. It's a 2-3-2 series. So Friday, Saturday in Houston, then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in Philadelphia, and then they'll close it out Friday, Saturday if needed in Houston there as well. Hopefully it's fun. I love the World Series. It is one of my favorite sports events ever. It's always entertaining. It's always electric. I absolutely love the World Series. So we'll see how that one shakes out. Let's close up with college football talk, Dad. Maybe next week we'll be talking about Aaron Judge to the Giants, but we'll wait on that news to break. So let's go ahead and get, though, to college football. Some big games this week: Ohio State, Penn State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Tennessee, and Kentucky, all the ranked versus ranked teams. Ohio State, Penn State, Dad. Ohio State looks like they may be the best team in the nation.
Yeah, that's sure what they've looked like. I mean, they've played teams where you thought, boy, this could maybe be close, and they have really dominated. And I think very easily they could end up being the number one seed in the tournament if they keep playing like they do now.
Oklahoma, Penn State, most people don't really care about that game, honestly. But I think Oklahoma State's really good, and I think they're going to bounce back and get a win this week against Kansas State. And then, again, where I live in Lexington, Kentucky. So Kentucky, Tennessee is a big deal. I grew up in Tennessee. All we did was make fun of Kentucky. I've been a little bit more tame since I've been here, but Tennessee is good, and Kentucky is not as good as they think they are. I think Tennessee wins this game as well. It's at home, which helps things too. I don't think this is the game Tennessee loses.
No, Tennessee does seem like the real thing, and it's at home, and I think they know what's in front of them here. So we'll see. The coach seems to they seem to be well coached, and it's very interesting to me the comments he makes after the games and things like that. He seems to just keep it very much of hey boy, these guys are really competing. They're really fighting. Doesn't seem like he puts a lot of pressure on the situation. And, they've got a tremendous offense. They've got weapons, and, of course, they're still missing a receiver. As long as their defense plays well, they're going to be hard to beat, and they'd be real hard for Kentucky to beat. So
you're trimming down your options for the Final Four for the playoff spots. Right now, undefeated teams towards the top: Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, Michigan, Clemson, and TCU. Alabama's ranked number 6 at the moment as well. Oregon and USC, both West teams that are one loss. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Question number 1, how many SEC teams are in the playoffs?
I think it'll be 2.
Yeah. It could be 3. If the chips fall the right way. If the chips fall the right way, it could be 3. I would be shocked if that was the case, but it's very possible. 2 is probably right. When you look at your Final Four, right now the 4 is Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, Michigan. Michigan, Ohio State will play each other. Georgia and Tennessee will play each other. You got Clemson right on the outside. TCU is down there at 7. And again, Alabama's still sniffing around. They won't move in until whether or not they make the SEC championship game. Clemson doesn't look like a Final Four team, and I didn't think they were going to make it anyhow. I had USC as my 4th team. I had Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, and USC as my 4. Now I don't think that's the 4 anymore, but I don't know who it is. Do you have any idea who's going to be that Final Four?
Well, right now you couldn't argue with the top 4 that are ranked, but like you said, Michigan's going to play Ohio State and may end up even playing them twice, and Tennessee is going to play Georgia. So that could change things. The question is, and this always comes up, if a Power 5 team that's undefeated, would they get left out? Well, I think that has happened before. But, it depends who the one-loss team is. So you have to keep an eye on Clemson and TCU. If they stay undefeated, will one or both of them move up because you're going to have somebody else with at least one loss? I think it's going to, at this point of the season, it does start to come down to style points. People will have to beat people, and they have to beat people significantly there. And I think some of the ones with the one loss is going to depend. If Tennessee lost to Georgia, but it was really, really close, Tennessee could stay in the hunt with this. And could even be that way with Michigan and Ohio State. And then, again, if Clemson loses a game and TCU loses a game, the more you're going to have a lot of one-loss teams. Somebody from the West, you're going to have maybe Oklahoma State. You're going to have a lot of people up there. And so what happens then, with Alabama? What if Alabama does get in the SEC championship, but they lose? They've got 2 losses. I don't think they would jump somebody this year with 2 losses and being who they've lost to. I don't think that would happen. So there's going to be, and there's a lot of football left. 4 or 5 weeks. So there's games left, and we'll know more in a couple weeks there, and we'll see how it goes.
I'm looking at TCU's schedule. They don't play anybody. They got West Virginia, Texas Tech, Texas, who's garnering some interest again, Baylor, who's having a down year, and Iowa State, who's having a down year. So TCU has a hard time building a resume to get to that playoff spot. Clemson's kind of similar. They don't really have that big win. They beat Georgia Tech to start the season. They got Furman. They got Louisiana Tech. They beat Wake Forest, who was ranked, but they barely beat them in double overtime. They beat NC State by 10, who was ranked. They beat Boston College, Florida State, Syracuse, who was ranked as well. Now they got Notre Dame, who's kind of doing better, Louisville, Miami, and South Carolina. I'm not sure there's enough there to build a resume to get over a one-loss SEC team. You might see 2 SEC teams, Georgia, Tennessee, or Georgia, Alabama, or Tennessee, Alabama, and 2 Big Ten teams, Ohio State and Michigan, depending on how those games play out. Oregon could sneak in. They're a one-loss team that's got a lot of points for them. So Oregon's probably that other team that could sneak back in at a one-loss as a champion, that is, one-loss champion from there as well. So it's going to be an interesting end of the year. But again, Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, someone's going to have a loss. So at least 2 of those teams are going to have a loss before the season ends. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But it's been fun. Saw one guy say that Tennessee has ruined the NFL for him because he watches Tennessee on Saturday, and it's so fun and exciting. He turns on the NFL, and the offense is just boring after watching Tennessee play a game. They are a fun team to watch, and it's great to see them back at it again. All right, Dad, I got nothing else. You got anything?
No, I mean, again, college football has been real interesting, and it's going to be, because we've got several weeks left. And I think it shows why college football is so popular and there is so much money involved in it. Because you have teams this year. The good thing is teams that the fan base has not been excited and about football in the last few years or in a while that all of a sudden have been. Syracuse, Illinois, South Carolina. I looked at South Carolina. We didn't think they'd be anything, and all of a sudden here they're winning, SEC games. Of course, Wake Forest was good last year, but they're good again this year. Those are fan bases that haven't, had a lot of excitement, and there's probably others down the line too. So when you look at the top 25, it's a different situation. Now, we got 5 games left, so there's going to be teams with 3 or 4 losses before it's all over with because they're playing each other. But I think it's been a great year for college football, and it'll be a good weekend this weekend.
For the record, I said that South Carolina would be on the rise this year. I had them going over 6 wins. They're at 5 wins currently. So where you say nobody saw that one coming, I'd like to at least say I saw it a little bit. I had over on Vanderbilt, hit that one. I had over on Missouri. They're at 3 wins. They got to get to 6. I had under on Florida. That was 7. They're at 4. That's looking decent. I had under on Kentucky, 8.5. They're at 5. So that one's not looking good. Over on Tennessee. So there's some in there. We have to go back and look at that here and sometime soon as we get towards the end of the season, see how we did on some of those things. But you're right. A lot of that has been fun. It's been fun to see some different teams in the top 25, even if it's just for a week or two. It has been fun to see all that around. I want to encourage people to go back and wherever you're listening to this podcast, go back and listen to previous episodes. This week in my local hour, covering Eastern Kentucky University, we talked with two football players, Ryan Jackson and Cornelius McCoy, but we also played an interview from Matt Roan that I had with the athletic director on Saturday. We talked about conference realignment, and I thought some really interesting stuff there with him. So go back and listen to that. We'll be back next Wednesday morning with another local hour episode, and ideally next Wednesday night with another live episode just like this, talking all things sports, looking at the NFL trade deadline next week. We'll be talking about anything that happened there, of course, the World Series, and everything going on in the NFL, including our picks each week. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sports Stove. Thank you for tuning in to today's edition of the Sports Stove podcast. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.